Hello Ptcg live players. So today I am going to show you how to hit the maximum damage in one attack. So what is the maximum damage you can do in one attack? From another YouTuber they got 774 million, and the link is in the description. They did another attack after this and it hit 0. So we know the game is coded using a 32-bit signed integer, as the next attack they did surpassed that number. So the max number that can fit into that variable is 2147483647. So at the time of recording this video, the max damage that we can hit right now is 2147483640, as attacks hit in multiple of tens. So let's hit that 2,147,483,640. So the main attack we are using is going to be counter from the Conkeldurr V. This attacks does whatever damage it took the previous turn plus 20 in return. But we are not using Conkeldurr as the attacker, but we are using Mime Jr. Mime Jr has the attack that your opponent chooses one of their Pokemon attacks. So your opponent will have a Conkeldurr on their bench, and when you attack, your opponent will choose this attack. So each attack is gaining 20 damage each time. But how does that get to 2 billion, I hear you ask? Well, that is why we have this Porygon with its conversion 4 attack. When used, the defending Pokemon has a weakness to the type mentioned. So when we are setting up, we use this attack on both Mime Jr to change their weakness to Psychic. So now when we use counterattack, not only are we adding 20, we are also doing doubling after the addition. This doubling is the main way to hit this huge number. But there are a few things for this to work, so we need to make sure our little Mime Jr doesn't just get knocked out. This is the importance of the Survival Brace tool. So when it takes a hit, the Survival Brace puts Mime Jr to 20 damage and removes the tool. Now we have a way to tank the hit, but how do we make the chain continue? So this is the importance of Roseanne's backup. This trainer has the effect to put that Brace tool card from the discard pile into your deck. You could then use an ability like Quick Search or a town store to get the Brace back. For this run I use Quick Search as I want to use a different stadium to town search. So we can put the Survival Brace back on Mime Jr, but it only works if the Pokemon has full HP. This is where Mime Jr low health is perfect for doing this loop. As it has 20 damage on it, we use Radiant Tsareena ability to heal 20 damage from each of your Pokemon. So after this, Mime Jr is back to full HP, and the Survival Brace back in effect. This means we can loop this for as many times as we can get the Survival Brace back out of the discard and back on the Mime Jr. So with 4 supporters and 4 Pal Pads, this means can put back the Survival Brace a maximum of 12 times each. So before we get to doing this loop, we need to set up. So we have a few cards we need to do this with. First off, we have Rotom V. This is just to draw cards to go through our deck. Just makes the game a little quicker. Next, we have Hisuian Heavy Ball. This is important to get those basic Pokemon out of the prizes. We will have a hard time if we are missing some and is a must. So how do we get important cards from prizes if we need them? You need the Survival Brace, Roseanne's backup, and Pal Pads for sure, and so we need to get them. So to help with this, we use Cresselia Attack Crescent Purge. This allows you to turn over a prize card before taking a prize and help to find the card you are looking for. But word of warning, if you turn over a basic Pokemon and don't take it as a prize and leave it, you will not be able to use Hisuian Heavy Ball to get that basic. The wording on Heavy Ball means you can only look at face prize cards, and so will not be able to take it out. So we have ways to get all our cards, but we just need to be wary to not knock out a Pokemon, as we have no Super Rods. Also, it is good to mention that we use Pidgeot V with Vanishing Wings to make sure either player doesn't deck out. This is important during setup and while doing the loop. Other cards for setup are Area 0 Under Depths and Pikachu X. This allows us to have Pokemon on the bench, which is needed for extra damage. These include Raging Bolt, Skeledirge X with Incendiary Song ability. So we need to set up and have used Conversion 4 on both Mime Jr. We also need to assign player A and B. Player A will be doing the first attack. They will just need to have Radiant Tsareena, Pidgeot X, and Conkeldurr V, and 7 energies loaded on their Pokemon. They will also make sure they have Survival Brace applied and 4 Roseanne's backup and 4 Pal Pads. Player A bench should look like so. Player B setup needs the same, plus Raging Bolt, Skeledirge X with Incendiary Song ability. Also have Brute Bonnet in hand with Turo or on bench, and have double Turbo Energy, Ancient Booster Capsule and Binding Mochi in hand. Also will need 5 Fire Energies in hand. The bench for Player B should like so, before any attacks. After applying conversion, Player A should attack with Mimed Games, and Play B should pick Bellowing Thunder. Player A should remove 7 energies to do 980 damage. Player A will just now be retrieving Brace, Reset Damage and Tool, and selecting Counter on every attack against them, and selecting Mimed Games on their attack. Player B will be doing the same with resetting Brace, Heal, and selecting Mimed Games, and selecting Counter when being attack. On Player B 3rd, 5th, 7th, 9th, and 11th turns, they will use the Incendiary Song ability to do 60 more damage on that turn. This is in addition to resetting Brace, Heal, etc. and doing counter attack. On every turn, you need to make sure you play Pal Pad to not deck out and return. At least 2 Roseannes back up to deck. Pidgeot V can help too here. On the 11th attack by Player B, it will be the last attack. Instead, getting back Brace Tool. The Binding Mochi tool needs to be added to Mime Jr. A double Turbo Energy is added to them too. The Incendiary Song ability needs to be used, and also Brute Bonnet's Toxic Powder at this point used. When doing counter, the damage will mean you hit 2,147,483,640. This works like the following. Player A does 980 damage. Player B does 2000 damage. Player A does 4040 damage. Player B does 8120 damage. Player A does 16280 damage. Player B adds Incendiary Song and does 32720 damage. Player A does 65480 damage. Player B does 131000 damage. Player A does 262040 damage. Player B adds Incendiary Song and does 524240 damage. Player A does 1048520 damage. Player B does 297080 damage. Player A does 4194,200 damage. Player B adds Incendiary Song and does 8388560 damage. Player A does 1777160 damage. Player B does 3354360 damage. Player A does 67108760 damage. Player B adds Incendiary Song and does 134217680 damage. Player A does 268435400 damage. Player B does 536870840 damage. Player A does 173741720 damage. Player B adds Incendiary Song and 40 for Binding Mochi, minus 20 for Double Turbo, and does 2147483640 damage. And that's it. The max damage within limits of a 32-bit signed integer. Anything higher than this number, the attack will display as 0. Hope you enjoyed the video and have fun trying it out.
you